Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we'll be learning how to draft the armhole Princess Dart. And as you know, to get started you will be needing your basic pattern, which is your front basic bodice and your back basic body. So if you don't know how to draft this basic body yet, I already have the tutorial on the channel. I'll be leaving the link in the description box. So let's get started to drafting this princess bust. So to get started, we'll be starting with tightening the underbust. So the first thing you want to do is to take your round under bust firmly. My round under bust is 28 inches. So I'll divide that by 4 and that will give me 7 inches. So I'll measure what I have on my underbust line. So what I have on my underbust line is 8.6. 8.6. So I'll be minusing the 8.6 from my 7 inches. So 8.6 minus 7 inches will give me 1.6 inches. So note, this 1.6 inches, you are going to divide it into 2, taking one to your center front and then taking the other one to the side front. But for this tutorial, I will not be dividing it into 2 because I want to have more tightening to my side front, which is here, my side front, compared to my center front. So I'll be taking 0.6 to the center front and 1 inch to the side front. So I'm taking my 0.6 from this midline. So I'll mark my 0.6 and then I'll mark my 1 inch towards the center front from this midline as well. And yes, here I have my 1 inch. So I'll be connecting this to the bust point and also to the waistline. So I'm connecting it with a broken line. Now that I'm done connecting this line, the next thing I want to do is to divide what we have here, which is from our bust point, which is our apex line, apex point, to our underbust. So I have 3.15 here. So I'm going to divide it into 2 and that will give me 1.5. And then I'll be using this my curve, but before then, because I don't want to have a sharp point at my apex, so I'll come down by half an inch. You can as well come down as 1 inch, but I'll be coming down by half inch. So the next thing I want to do is to use this my French curve to connect from the half inch to the middle line we shared. So you can as well use your pattern master for this, but I prefer working with this as it doesn't have much curve. It's not that curvy compared to the pattern master. You know, when drafting a bustier, you have to avoid every curve area. If not, you are going to have a pointed bustier when you sew together. So I'm just flipping the curve to the other way around and then connect it to my underbust. So I'll do the same thing to the center front. Remember not to make this too curvy so that it will be easier for you to join without having pointed edges. So that we are done contouring your underbust, the next thing you want to do is to come to this your shoulder line and then get the midpoint. So what I have here is 4.1 and that will give me 2.2, 2.5. okay, what I have here is 4 inches and that will give me 2 inches at my midpoint, from my mid shoulder to my apex point with a broken line. So the next thing to do is to determine where you want your princess seam to be. So you can have your princess seam at the shoulder tip, and then you can have it at the mid armhole, You can also have it 2 inches below the mid armhole or 1 inch below the mid armhole. But for this pattern, for this tutorial, we'll be making use of the mid armhole and we'll be coming down by 1 inch. So the first thing you want to do is to connect from your apex point to your mid armhole. And remember to come up from the apex point by 1 inch. So we'll be coming up 1 inch from the apex point, and then you connect it to your mid armhole. So now that we are done with that, the next thing I want to do is to come down from my mid armhole by 1 inch. Remember, this is a bustier and we'll be padding it. I will also come out from my apex point by 2.5 inch. By 2.5, just count 2. Let's say this is 1, and then just count 1, 2. So I'm doing this so that we don't have a sharp edge when we are sewing our patterns together. And then you connect it to the 1 inch from the mid armhole. So doing this just help you avoid any sharp edges. So you can see it's not too pointy, it's almost totally straight at the apex point. So from the armhole, we'll be raising it by 1 inch. We are doing this because by the time we close this our bust dart, this side front becomes shorter than the center front. So we have to extend here by 1 inch so that it can fit in back to this seam line when we are sewing it together. So if you don't do this, by the time you close this bust dart, because you are moving this 2 inches right to this armhole seam line, the princess seam line. So by the time you don't raise it up by 1 inch and then you have closed this dart, when you are sewing it back, this center front becomes longer than the side front. So we'll raise it up by 1 inch. So I'm making use of this line. I'm raising it by 1 inch from this straight line here, not this normal armhole line, from this one. So I'll mark my 1 inch. Now that we have raised it up by 1 inch, we'll come to the chest line and also raise here by half an inch. Then you can put your seam allowance. I'll be making use of 1.5 inches for my seam allowance. And then connect it with a straight ruler. And then you reconnect the armhole. So by so doing, by the time we cut out this pattern, this side front will still be able to fit in the center front. We'll see that when we finish cutting out this pattern. So for the back, like we did for the front, so the first thing is to measure what you have at your shoulder, from one shoulder tip to the other shoulder tip, and I had 4 inches. So divided by 2 gave me 2 inches, and then I connected it with a broken line just like we did for the front to meet up with my apex point, and that I have done. So that I have done. And then the next thing is to come up from the apex point, which is here. Remember, here is our apex. So just come up by 1 inch, and then you use your curve and create your princess seam line. So remember not to make this too curvy. Don't use this part of the curve. And that is it with drafting the princess seam. Don't forget to add your seam allowance, which is 1.5 inches like we did for the front. Also add it to the back as well. So this is our side back and this is our center back. As you all know, the back is always cut 2 pieces because it's not unfold. And don't forget to put your grain line, which is indicating whether your pattern should be cut on a straight grain line or bias. So it's good to label which is which so that you don't mix them up when you are cutting. So that's all with the drafting of this princess cut. So don't forget to add your 1/2 inch seam allowance at the neckline, the seam, the shoulder seam, and then the shoulder and the armhole. So remember, you're adding your 1 inch for your zipper. So don't forget that, and you are measuring the 1 inch from this line. So you just measure like so. And this will serve as your zipper allowance. The next thing you want to do is to cut this pattern out, and then I show you how to close this bust dart that's moving into the shoulders to the armhole. I'm done cutting out my pattern. This is my back, so don't forget to write your back pattern. And this is the front pattern. This is the side front. So this is to be cut 2 pieces. Now this is how it looks like. You see, I've closed up this bust dart, and then the dart automatically move to the armhole, to the mid armhole that I was telling you guys about. So if you cross check it now, you'll notice we have 2 inches, you can see, and that's the 2 inches we moved from our side bust dart, which is the difference between our back half length and our front half length. So let me just quickly show you guys what it would have looked like if we didn't extend this line by 1 inch. So look at it now. Even with the 1 inch extension that we did, it's just little, like 2.5 that is left. So we're just going to reshape that when we finish sewing our pattern. But if we didn't extend this line by 1 inch, look at where our center front would have, our side front would have stopped, and then we would have ended up shaping here, and that would have really spoiled our pattern. So it's always good to extend this line by 1 inch or 1.5 inches, depending on how you can work well while sewing your pattern. Remember, you don't pull when sewing. For the back, there is no much alteration, it's just a style line. Remember, there is no contouring at the back, there's no bust at the back. So it's just to cut out these 2 pieces and add your 1/2 inch allowance to join it back. And this is your zipper allowance. So note, you can decide to make your neckline a V neckline. Just do whatever neckline you want for your back bodice. So it's just to join this back, add your 1/2 inch seam allowance, and that's all with drafting the princess seam. So if you enjoyed this tutorial or find it helpful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, like, comment, and share. Don't forget to invite your family and friends to join the winning team. Yes, we are the winning team. Want us to do a tutorial on how to sew this, how to pad it? Leave the comment in the comments box down below, and I'll see you guys on my next tutorial. Bye for now.
Don't forget to subscribe.